Wild game in Atlanta, and the San Francisco Giants came out on top with a resilient offense that put 12 runs on the board. Although the Giants showed their warts in this game, there was another crazy, unfortunate defensive play, and also there was an injury that was a real scare, and so we'll talk about that as well. So much on today's show coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Hey Giants fans, you're going to love this. Today's episode is brought to you by the Sports Card Investor app. Welcome to the world of trading cards reimagined. Stay tuned later in the show for more information on this awesome new tool for collectors. You're going to want to check out the Sports Card Investor app. But first, you're going to want to check out the details of this game. This was a wild one, and I thought a pretty important one for the San Francisco Giants as they jumped out to a 4-0 lead early in the game, but then they gave it back with Anthony DeSclafani, we'll talk about him later, making his long-anticipated return from the injured list, although I know some fans are kind of down on DeSclafani. We'll talk about the whole thing with him later. But yeah, they had a 4-0 lead. That exact situation we had just talked about the day prior came up. Bases loaded, nobody out. And they ended up getting 4 runs out of that situation, a sac fly plus an Austin Wynns 3-run homer against a nasty pitcher in Spencer Strider, who has just been a real bright spot for the Atlanta Braves this season. But the Giants got to him. It was probably his worst outing of the year. 3 2/3, 6 earned runs allowed. I think they raised that ERA by almost a full point. So resilient Giants offense. Austin Wynns. It was just the start of what turned out to be a monster game for him. And now, I mean, from one game, he was like kind of 20 points below average by weighted runs created plus, and now he's got a 150 weighted runs created plus. So that's how you know you're living in the land of small samples, when one individual game can do that to you, but it did for Wynns. And when we compare like the offensive numbers for Joey Bart, not to beat a dead horse, but what stands out to me when I look at Wynns' numbers now with the Giants in 10 games, 27 plate appearances, the strikeout rate is what jumps off the page. It's just 14.8%. And if you look at his AAA strikeout rate from this year, it was just 13.4%. So he's been able to carry over that really good ability to make contact to the major league club. And that was always a concern with Bart. When we saw strikeout rates around 30% in the minor leagues, you fear that that could be significantly worse in the majors. And that is what we saw. But for Wynns, I mean, the minor league numbers were super intriguing the last couple of years, where he's just been a monster in the upper minors for both the Orioles and the Phillies organizations. And if we look at the contact rate for Wynns this year, it's 87.5%, which is just really high. So you're looking at, they found like the antithesis of Joey Bart, a guy who makes a ton of contact and a guy who doesn't strike out, which is, like I said, pretty much the opposite of what they were getting from Bart. But now the season numbers for Wynns, again, it is still a small sample. It's not like it wasn't a small sample yesterday, so we don't read into it. And now that he had a good game, we do read into it a lot. But, I mean, it's worth pointing out, he's hitting 320 with a 370 on base and 520 slugging. So he's more than done his part since the Giants acquired him. And I think he's also been a good, solid defensive catcher during this period of time that he's been with the team. So a huge game for him yesterday. They finally got a multi-run homer. They had hit, 11 straight solo homers. It's funny. So much gets made of that. I really don't think it's that significant. It's just baseball. There's so many individual moments in baseball. Like, there's so many plate appearances. There's so many pitches. There's so many times you're up with the bases empty, and there's so many times you're up with guys on base that like in statistics, and baseball is like really a game of statistics, you're going to find weird kind of random outcomes when you have so many opportunities for weirdness. So the fact that they were hitting solo homers, it's like, okay, noteworthy, I guess, but it doesn't mean anything. That's the thing. It probably doesn't mean anything. And they were always eventually going to hit a homer with guys on base. And they did last night, and it was a big one. And then they hit a solo homer later on with Joc Pederson, who, by the way, is now leading, or third, I should say, but in position to start the National League All-Star Game with the latest update, or the first update coming out yesterday. Joc Pederson is kind of amazing. I don't quite know how he was able to pull that off. The numbers are really good. The OPS is really good, which they show on the voting page. And then the raw numbers, like 15 homers, jumps off the page as well. Well, it was 14 going into yesterday, but now 15 with a home run he added last night. So coming up next, we'll talk a little bit more about Joc Pederson. I also want to talk about a couple of other significant things that happened in this game. It's funny. The Giants, even when they do something good right now, they almost always seemingly simultaneously do something that makes you want to pull your hair out. And we're going to get into a couple of those specifics in just a minute. But first, before we do, whether you're a casual card collector or looking for exciting alternative investment opportunities, the free Sports Card Investor app has something for you. Breakout stars or prospects like Marco Luciano or Luis Matos or Luis Gonzalez, you can check out what their cards are worth and maybe try to pick guys up before they become good. And it's just an exciting opportunity. And you can check out the value of all these different cards all in one place with the Sports Card Investor app. There's never been a better time to start collecting cards of your favorite players like Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, maybe some Giants players mixed in, Logan Webb, Carlos Rodon. With the free Sports Card Investor app, you can see the latest values and find great deals to build a one-of-a-kind collection. Download the Sports Card Investor app today. Available for free in the Google Play and Apple app stores, or go to sportscardinvestor.com/lockedon. All right, as promised, I want to get into these like situations that I was referring to. It seems like the Giants, when they do something good, they often simultaneously do something that makes you want to pull your hair out. So we're going to talk about a couple of situations like that, and Joc Pederson, as I said. One live NBA draft show is not enough for Locked On. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA draft night. So if you have a favorite NBA team, which I believe you do, Giants fans, make sure you subscribe now to their Locked On YouTube channel so you can get notified when they go live on NBA draft night. So yeah, just to wrap up that point about Joc Pederson, it's just worth reiterating. Like, it's easy to take advantage or to take for granted what he's doing because he's a platoon player, because he doesn't necessarily play every day, and sometimes they pinch hit for him. But the value, that's like, this is the thing. So I want to say this like every time, just so the point gets made, because I don't feel like a lot of other Giants analysts, frankly, mention this. Like, we often say, okay, Joc Pederson is doing so great. Why don't they start him against left-handed pitching? Well, consider for a moment, and Ron Wotus said this on the postgame show, a huge reason why the numbers are so good is because he's not facing left-handed pitching. So if he was facing left-handed pitching, all you're going to do is just suck down the numbers, drag them down to the point where they're not nearly as good. Like, look at the career numbers against left-handed pitching. It's a significant sample. He's been in the league since 2014, so he's faced, even though he doesn't face them a lot, he's faced lefties. And the numbers are just significantly worse. I don't have it pulled up here, but I believe he's got like a 66 weighted runs created plus against lefties, and it's like 125 against righties in his career. So, no, and that's the thing. It's like those plate appearances that you would have Joc Pederson facing a lefty are going to like Austin Slater, who gets to face a lefty. And if you look at Slater's numbers against lefties, he's got similar numbers to Pederson against righties. And so combined with these two players, you're getting excellent production. And so this is like where the Giants are able to get advantages that other teams don't have when they just throw out a Joc Pederson against left-handed pitching. And also you need a guy like Slater who consistently in his career has really hit left-handed pitching. And so these two players combined are like one excellent player. But I mean, even Joc Pederson, like I said, he's third in All-Star voting. So the rest of the fans out there, because it's not like the Giants are leading with a bunch of players, and so Giants fans are just flooding the ballot boxes with votes for Giants players. Pederson is getting votes from just a national audience. And so the production has been so good, even though it's kind of limited to just facing mostly righties, that it warrants attention. And so the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, you signed Joc Pederson for 1 year and $6 million, and there's a lot of scoffing at this and saying, sign a real player, don't sign these part-time players who are limited defensively. Well, okay, that may be so, but if you look at some of the big signings around baseball from last offseason, I don't have them pulled up, but we've checked in on them periodically on the show. Like any of them, talk about Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Chris Bryant, which has been a disaster in Colorado. He's barely played, hurt his back sleeping on a bed on the road, and the production hasn't really been there. He has 0 home runs, 0, playing in Denver for the Rockies, but he's been hurt. But Pederson has 15 homers, okay? So, I mean, he's hitting 271 with a 347 on base and 565 slugging, a 153 weighted runs created plus, 1.4 Fangraphs wins above replacement. Like, Pederson has he couldn't be better. Like, this is kind of his ceiling, and he's just had a monster season for the San Francisco Giants, and forget what the contract is. Like, the production is there, and it's better than a lot of guys who got like way more years and way more dollars committed to him. And I'm just commenting on that. I'm not saying it's good or bad or whatever, but to me it doesn't matter what the contract is. I just matter is the production there. And for him, the production has absolutely been there. But turning the page to the plays that make you want to pull your hair out, I just must say, the Mike Yastrzemski got a big, huge bases loaded double down the right field line against, who was it? Colin McHugh, who came in for Darren O'Day. It was bases loaded, 1 out, and I think the Giants were down by a run at this point. So it's another one of those scenarios. We talked about this at length yesterday. The league average rate of scoring a runner from third with less than 2 outs is 52%, and the Giants went into yesterday at like 49.7%. So almost league average, but below league average. But if you look at some of the teams worse than the Giants, it was the Dodgers, the Astros, the Braves, and then the Giants came through pretty much every time yesterday in those situations. Actually, there were a couple. Belt and La Stella did not late in the game, but then Flores had a huge 2-out hit with a guy on third, and the bases were loaded, and he hit a double down the line. And this was another example of what I'm saying. So the Giants got 2 bases loaded hits, and both times they got a runner thrown out on the bases. And for Yastrzemski, it was Luis Gonzalez who was thrown out, and he was the runner at first. So they were trying to clear the bases, and there was only 1 out. And so if you don't send Luis Gonzalez, it's second and third with 1 out with Longoria coming up against a righty. And so I on the one hand, I understand the aggressiveness, because Longoria against right-handed pitching, he's just not been very good. Like, pretty much the entire time he's been with the Giants, he's been a below-average hitter against right-handed pitching, and specifically this year, the quality of his at-bats have just been poor lately, I would say. And he did end up striking out in that at-bat, because he did come up. It was just with 2 outs and a guy on second versus 1 out and second and third. But I continue to want to comment on Mark Hallberg, the Giants' third base coach, and Dave Fleming mentioned this on the broadcast. The way to judge a third base coach is not by saying it's a success if a runner is safe when he sends him home, and it's a failure if he's out. That is a completely incorrect way of looking at how successful a third base coach is. In fact, it's pretty hard to judge, like, with your eyes how successful a guy is. You need numbers. You need the success rate when you send guys. And with 1 out, it's a lot more complicated and nuanced. With 2 outs, which there weren't at the time, I just must say, but it triggers this conversation. With 2 outs, you need that guy to be thrown out at least half the time at the plate. Otherwise, you are literally leaving runs on the board or off the board. You're not scoring. You're giving up runs by not having guys thrown out at least half the time. So that might sound a little bit confusing, but if they're always safe with 2 outs, the next guy has a probability of reaching base and therefore extending the inning, therefore driving in a run. Supposedly, I mean, they might reach base like via a walk and they still don't drive in the run. But basically, even a very good hitter only has a 40% chance of getting on base. And so if you're out at home 50% of the time, there's still a little bit, you could still be a little bit more aggressive and that's the better option is sending more guys home. And you're going to score more runs that way because 60% of the time the next guy's going to get out and the inning's going to end anyway. So you need to send more guys home. I hope that makes sense. We spent more time talking about it yesterday, but it does kind of drive you crazy. It's like you can't just be happy for the big hit by Yastrzemski. You've got to simultaneously be disappointed that a guy got thrown out at home. And to me, that was more of a questionable call and had everything to do with Ronald Acuna throwing to second base. Otherwise, Hallberg was holding up Gonzalez, but as soon as the throw went to second, instead of like in towards home plate and the cutoff man, that's when he sent him. And it took a perfect throw by Dansby Swanson. So I get it. I'm not going to bury Hallberg for that call, but he has gotten a lot of guys thrown out at home this year, but that is a good thing, believe it or not, because if you're not getting anybody thrown out, you are leaving runs out there. So yeah, that's my point there. But then later on, well, no, I want to finish that point by saying, so it was Longoria next, but then Joc Pederson would have gotten to face a right-handed pitcher with guys on second and third, even if Longoria strikes out. And so for that reason, I think maybe he wanted to hold him, but then the throw made him change his mind. But I think if you asked him, he might say, I probably should have held him in that situation. And then later on, Flores, same kind of deal. He hits what could have been a double down the right field line with 2 outs in the ninth, scores a couple runs, but he gets thrown out at second base. So getting thrown out at second is a totally different story. You don't want to do that in that situation. So I don't see why Flores did that. There was really no reason to challenge Acuna there. You would have had 2 outs, runners on first and third. It's not that different than 2 outs, runners on second and third when you already have a 4-run lead. Just stay. Don't be thrown out in that situation. So annoying. Something good happens and you simultaneously do something that makes you want to pull your hair out. So coming up next, there's a injury scare. DeSclafani came back, and that's pretty much it. We're going to talk about the injury scare, though. That's probably the most significant thing. So what is the status there? But first, as the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnMLB. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. This is a game changer for me. I felt the same way when car shopping could kind of start to be done online. What's a better convenience factor? Going to the car dealership and then having to deal with pressuring salespeople, or being able to do this online and kind of at your own pace? Well, Blue Nile brings that to the jewelry business. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Giants listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Use code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, as promised, we're just going to put a bow on this game between the Giants and the Braves. What an entertaining game. Man, the Giants needed this one. To give up, to be up 4-0 early and then to just give it right back would have been a demoralizing loss. But the offense was resilient. They put themselves back in position to at least split this series with just winning one of the next two, and it just was a much needed win. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses. There was a significant injury scare when Brandon Crawford came in sliding to home plate. Another very late slide by Brandon Crawford. We kind of saw something similar in the Pittsburgh series when he just kind of collided with the Pirates player who was standing on second base in a double play situation. Brandon Crawford just hip checked him. And look, I get what he was trying to do in both situations. And honestly, last night with this late slide, he felt like, and he said this after the game, it was the only way for him to score. And he was right. He was called out, but they went to replay review and overturned the call. So that was a huge run. So I give him credit for playing hard and not just kind of saying, okay, I'm probably going to be out and sliding and letting the catcher block him off. He went in hard and ended up hurting himself. It looked at first like maybe his right ankle got crushed and rolled on, but turns out it was his left knee, which is, he's going to get an MRI today just to be safe, but x-rays were negative, and he thinks and Kapler agreed or said that it's probably going to be just a couple days. And so that's a big deal. To lose Brandon Crawford, as much as it's been somewhat of a disappointing season for him in a lot of ways, he is an important piece, and they don't really have a clear answer at the shortstop position if he were to go down. They do have some intriguing, like Will Wilson was recently promoted to AAA after kind of being super impressive in AA, and so Wilson should be part of that conversation if Crawford were to go down with a significant injury, but thankfully it appears that he was able to avoid that. In the interim, it would be Thairo Estrada playing short, which is exactly what we saw last night. And some plays were good, but one play in particular was terrible and very costly. And so it was a ground ball, could have been very costly. It could have cost them the game, really. It was a ground ball to Evan Longoria. I believe it was 9-7 Giants at the time. And it would have been there was a force out at second, and it would have been the third out of the inning. And I think this was in the 8th inning, bottom 7. So Longoria fields the ground ball, and he throws to Estrada, who's running from the shortstop position to cover the second base bag. And for Longoria, I thought in real time he should just throw to first, because that is an awkward-looking throw to Estrada. That is not how you draw it up. Like, normally it would make more sense for the second baseman to be covering on a play like that, because for the shortstop, you're kind of running in the same direction as the ball, versus for the second baseman, you're running just straight towards the ball, and you have a better like view of the ball coming to you. Whereas Estrada is running like sideways, and he's looking for the base with his eyes, right? And with his feet. He's kind of feeling for the base with his feet while having to look at the throw, and the throw kind of was delivered face high, and so his glove ends up going in front of his face, so he can't see anything at that point. Like, he's not looking down because the ball's coming to him. He's not able to look up because his glove is blocking his eyes, and so the ball just hits him in the glove and pops out, and he doesn't see it for a minute, and the runners are safe. And so it ended up scoring a run. I think it was first and third at that point, so it was 9-8, and it brought up Ronald Acuna Jr. in a one-run game with two guys on. And so that just cannot happen. So Estrada has to be better. By some metrics, he has been one of the worst defensive players in the majors, at least at his various positions. By some metrics, he's not been that bad, but catching the ball has been a problem for him at times. But for me, that all started with Longoria. It would have been a routine throw to first base. It was Matt Olson running. He's not a super fast runner. Just throw the ball to first instead of making an awkward throw to a shortstop covering the base in that situation. But ultimately, Estrada has to catch that ball, but also I'd like to see Longoria just make the more routine throw versus the awkward throw to a shifted infield. So anyway, they got out of it. The bullpen had some big, gutsy innings. Camilo Doval gave up a couple runs in the bottom of the ninth on a Matt Olson homer. and he slammed his glove down after the second out, thinking it was the third out, which wasn't a great look. And like I said, Anthony DeSclafani came back. They made a couple roster moves, none of which were particularly significant, except José Álvarez going on the injured list. And it wasn't a great return for DeSclafani, but let's give him some time. He was so good for the Giants last year, and it's just good to have options in that starting rotation. It is a 3-year deal. It has not started off well, but again, he was so good last year, and I'm ready to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, at least while he gets his feet underneath him, kind of literally and figuratively, as he's coming back from this ankle injury. So that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen. The first picks of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft have been made. Search now for Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, the draft experts of Locked On NBA Big Board. The 5-episode Ultimate NBA Mock Draft is underway. Make Ultimate NBA Mock Draft your second listen today. Once again, my name's Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. And also, we'll be back tomorrow talking about, this is a big game for me. This is like the one, if you're going to try to just win one of the next two, obviously you want to win them both. But tonight, Carlos Rodon against Charlie Morton, who has had his ups and downs this year. Rodon, if he can just go out there and dominate and the Giants can get to Morton, that would be huge. And then you can try to get greedy in the last game of the series. So tonight is the one, the big one for me. So we'll be back tomorrow breaking down this game. Anyway, thanks again for listening today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Stay Locked On Giants.